that she is going to join a little bit late. Internet connection.
Okay.
So the topic is origin of yoga and its journey to America. Do you know from where the yoga was discovered? In India. Yoga was discovered in India more than 6,000 years ago. 6,000 years. So we are running 2020. So you have to add another 4,000 years. So some people say yoga is more than 6,000 years. Now, one thing to understand how old the knowledge may be. Yeah, how old the knowledge may be. Right, first, the place, the country of origin may be. But if the knowledge tells about the truth and the knowledge is right, then we should accept it. Knowledge is truthful, knowledge is right, knowledge gives us deeper insight about ourselves, right? Then we should accept it. It doesn't matter how long, how old it is, or uh, how new it is. Now ask yourself about peace, happiness, love, wisdom. Peace, happiness, love, wisdom. This is all about yoga. What it tells that how to live, work, and think and speak in peace, in happiness, in love, in wisdom. So whether it is 10,000 years old or whether it is discovered yesterday, doesn't matter. But for the sake of understanding, when we say that yoga is 6,000 years old, it means that knowledge was discovered thousands of years ago, and that knowledge is being passed on from the masters to the students, and then students became the master. You are also going to be the master after completing the course. So that is how we should understand any knowledge, any branch of knowledge, whether it is science, modern science, or whether it is yoga. Now, what is special about yoga? Do you get anxious? Do you get angry? Do you react? So,
Mm-hmm.
how to get rid of that reaction forever? How to live in peace and happiness all the time. So, it means if there is an anger inside, then only I become angry. If anger is not inside, how can I become angry? If impression of reaction is there inside, then only I react. If that impression is not present, how can I react? Think of it. So, that impression of anxiety or the anger or the reaction are present within me. So, yoga says that can we remove them? Yes, we can remove all those impressions that is stored in our Mind. Mind is a storehouse. So, whatever we think, whatever we speak, whatever we act, it is stored in the storehouse of the mind. That storehouse of the mind is known as karma shaya. It is a Sanskrit word. It means a reservoir of impressions. Now, see that. Let me give you an example. You see that you look at this paper, it is written here in the
Mhm.
front. So, when you take it back, you still feel, you see that? You still see something is written in the front. So, these are known as impression. This is the first time. Say now you became angry in the front and the impression is deposited in the back. You reacted today. Impression is deposited in the storehouse of the mind. That is how we should understand. Did you get it? Storehouse of mind. All impressions are deposited there as a checking account. What happens when your mood is off? That impression triggers, huh? Mood off, impression triggers, and then you say, we become angry, and after becoming angry, then we repent, we say sorry. How many times we said sorry in our life? Just
Thousands of times.
so why to say sorry rather than remove that impression from the mind? So when you remove that impression from the mind, then what happens? And how we can remove that impression? By yoga. There are different practices. Now, what happens? When you remove that impression from the mind, you awaken to equanimity. What is equanimity?
Um,
Here comes our young friend Avery. Avery is there. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. How are you?
Fine. You're happy, smiling,
Mm-hmm.
always smiling,
Always smiling.
no anger.
None at all.
I like it. So, what we were talking about, that yoga was discovered 6,000 years ago. So, nowadays it is 2020 plus 4,000 years more. So, that becomes 6,000 years. Now, I was just talking to Hayden that whether any knowledge is 6,000 years ago or it was discovered yesterday, knowledge must be right, must be good to use it. Whether it was discovered yesterday or 6,000 years, whether it was discovered in India or in US, in any part of the world. So, what is importance to know? What yoga says, knowledge should be right, good, helpful. Then we should accept that knowledge. That is the first point I made. You can intervene in between and ask the question. I always welcome question. I am always delighted if young kids start asking the question, they will they are ready to acquire the knowledge. I'm a different kind of a teacher. So you can intervene, you can interfere and ask the question. So first thing is that whether the knowledge is discovered many thousand years ago, it has a different place, it has a different name. What is very important? Knowledge should be good, should be right, should be helpful, should give me the deeper insight how to live in peace, happiness, love, and wisdom. That is the science of yoga. Clear?
Uh-huh.
Understood? So, even when someone asks, and you are a teacher, you have to speak the way I speak in your own expression. Now, the second point that I was making with the Hayden, I asked her that do you become angry? Yes. Do you become reactive? Yes. So, how to remove those reaction and impression from the mind? Yoga tells us. Yoga guides the way. But second point, then I said, is also very important. If I become angry, it means anger is within me. Then only reaction is within me. Then only I become reactive. Now, question is that is okay, but at present I am not angry, I am not reactive. Then where the reaction and the anger is stored? So I said it is stored in the storehouse of the mind. That storehouse of the mind is known as memory, or there all the impressions are present. And then you logged in. We were talking about when we remove these impressions by yoga, what happens to the mind? The mind lives in equanimity. That is where equanimity. But what is that equanimity? We should also understand what is that equanimity. If we understand what is equanimity, so your mind is equal or equal in behavior. If I say equal in behavior, attitude, uh, and thinking with everyone in the world outside. That is the first meaning of equanimity. What means? It is not creating, the mind is not creating any difference, right? That is the first meaning of equanimity, right? It is outside. It is out. You see, for the practical purpose, you say your dad is a dad, you say your mom is a mom, but in your mind, you feel equal, you have a equal regard, you have a equal behavior, you have an equal attitude towards them. Right? Understood? That is the first meaning of equanimity. And second meaning of equanimity. Second meaning of equanimity, what is that? That your mind is free from likes and dislikes. Mind is free from, that is also taught by yoga. What is that? The mind is free from likes and dislikes. I hate this guy. I hate this person, and I love this person. So that attitude in the mind is not there. That is the second meaning of equanimity. You got it? So, why? When you like someone, what happens? Attachment. What brings attachment? Dependency. Dependency causes what causes? Dependency causes obsession, and obsession causes delusion, and delusion causes anger, anxiety. So why what we are doing? We are removing the roots of anger and reaction. See, Hayden, I solved your problem. So this is how we do it. And if you dislike someone, then what happens? That causes the jealousy and hatred. Jealousy is also an obsession. An obsession also leads to delusion, and delusion also leads to anger, anxiety, and reaction. Did you understand? So we remove that impression which is stored in the mind. So why I started talking of equanimity? Should ask. So in Gita, Gita is a text which says equanimity is yoga. One definition of yoga. Did you get it? Now tell me, when this knowledge was discovered 6,000 years ago, or it was discovered yesterday, tell me, is this knowledge is right and good? What is your mind is saying is not this knowledge is right and good? If this knowledge is right and good, I must accept it. I must accept it. I should understand it, and I should practice it, and then I should live it. Here, got it? Any doubt?
None.
So now you see that what is the wrong knowledge? With reference to anger, can you tell me? You made me angry. You are responsible. That is a wrong knowledge. Is it right or wrong?
It's wrong.
It's a wrong. Hayden, how many times you told others that you are wrong? You make me crazy.
Lots of time.
Lot of time. So from now onward, you are not going to say it. You go and sit in the room, and then you start thinking in this way. You will find out it is because of these impressions stored in the mind. That is why I became angry. So let me pacify myself first before I do anything outside. So once I pacified myself, I realized and I commit myself to change. That is the real journey of yoga. Is it so difficult? It's not difficult. If you want to change others, it is damn difficult. If I want to change myself, I have to start with myself. I have a freedom. Do you see? I have a freedom. And our great teachers say, what they say? They say that you cannot change the world, but you can change yourself. Huh? Great teachers, what they say, that you can change yourself, but you cannot change the world. You can change yourself. Means you can change yourself. So where are the tools? All the tools of yoga helps us to change ourselves first. And I gave you one example of huh, equanimity. Got it? Yoga should be taught in this manner so that it goes into your head. You start thinking and you start changing yourself. So that is the meaning of the first para. Now let us do the second, modern science in the yoga. Did you receive the file? Every? Yeah. So in the second para, I wrote modern science aims at discovery and understanding of matter, material world, and the phenomenon outside. Yoga science aims at discovery of the real self, my true nature. Now see, the moment I say hidden in every, you are hidden, you are every means I am different from you. When you say Girish, then you mean you are different from me. Clear? We are going slowly. So there are two things in the world, only two things. What are those two things? I am and I am not. Are you getting it? You say dad, it means you are not your dad. You say mom, you are not mom. You say school, you are not school. You say your hair, you are not your hair. So there are two things in the world. One is I am means you are, and second is you are not. So we say I am as a real self, and I am not is not self, right? I am, you say real self, and I am not, you say the material world, the world outside. Clear? Are you becoming clear, Hayden? I am and I am not.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I am not? Am I a smartphone? No. Am I my house? No. Am I dad? No. Am I? So, and what I am? Who you are? Tell me. So, when you say you are Hayden, Hayden is your name, every is your name, but what you are, we don't know. Yoga helps us to know who we are. So, the goal of yoga is who we truly are. Who we truly are. So, Master says you are real self. And what is real self? Real self has 5 attributes. You can write down: pure consciousness, truth, permanent happiness, love, and wisdom. There are 5 attributes of real self.
Could you repeat the second one? You cut out for a moment.
Truth, pure consciousness, truth, permanent happiness, love, and wisdom or knowledge. So, how to understand a little deeper? I think I talked about last time the sweetness of a sugar. So now another point that we need to understand, this real self is common. Your real self inside and my real self inside are one and only one. How is it possible? I have a different shape. I have a different name. I am born at different place. Huh? My color, my texture, my voice, everything is different. How can you say that the real self is one? It is the same in everyone. Real self in me and you all are essentially one. So it by example. What is that example? There are many examples. One example, you know, sugar is sweet, candy is sweet, ice cream is sweet. What is common? Sweetness. So sweetness is our real nature, and you color on the sweetness, you put lot of stuff, it becomes candy, it becomes ice cream. Similarly, on the real self, huh? Nature put one stuff, it became Girish. Nature put another stuff, it became hidden. The nature put third stuff, it became every, it became Casey. But deeper inside is the real self. Got it? This is how we understand. Are you clear? So,
Mhm.
not only you, me, your dad and mom, your siblings all have the same real nature. Real nature is common, real self is common, like the sweetness of a sugar. Outer form, name, age, shape, country, they may be different. Did you get it? Yoga is the discovery of that real self. Are you getting it? Clear.
Mhm.
Now we will go little deeper. When I say yoga is 6,000 years old, so there is a Indus Valley civilization, the third para, history of yoga in India. So that civilization is known as Indus Valley, or it is known as Sindhu Saraswat tradition. The oldest text of that civilization is known as Rig Veda. Veda means knowledge. Rig Veda is a text, oldest text written in the world is known as Rig Veda. So that oldest text explains about yoga, and that is why we say yoga is 6,000 years old. So we are giving a proof of it. What is the proof? There is a Indus Valley civilization, and that is in that civilization we had a book that we found that is known as Rig Veda, and that Rig Veda explains about yoga. So it gives you a deeper insight of what yoga is. See that 6,000 years ago, that book gives you. That gives. Sienna joined us. Welcome, Sienna. Both have joined again. Very good. I was waiting for you guys. So we joined. So now we were covering history of yoga in India. So 6,000 years ago, we found there is a Indus Valley civilization. And in that civilization, we found the oldest book. What is the oldest book? It is known as Rig Veda. Sienna, can you move your camera a little down? I see only your up to nose.
Oh,
Okay. Yes, now I see you. I should see your expression also, whether you are understanding or not. My expressions are hidden in my beard, so you don't need to have. That is good, Sienna. So, what Rig Veda defines yoga? I have sent you the file, but so we read it and then I'll explain you. When a yogi means a person who practices yoga, has control on his five organs of action, five organs of perception, and mind through the power of yoga. In this way, when he does meditation, then he sees God. So here, the God means the real self. Then you discover the real self. We were talking about yoga is the discovery of our real nature. What is real nature? It is the sweetness. Did you understand that example? Sweetness of a sugar. Sweetness is common in candy, in ice cream, in what are sweet? What other eatables that you find sweet in dessert? So sweetness is common. So in that way, the real self is common in every human being. When you discover the real self in you, you start living in peace and happiness. So this is now, see, the definition. When a yogi has control on his five organs of action, there are five motor organs, there are five sense organs, and when we take over the mind, we remove all the impressions of anxiety, of reaction that is stored in the mind, then we achieve yoga. And in deep meditation, we find our real self. Right? So let us go to the next para. There are many as 3,000 texts were written and available during the period until 300 AD, in which there are hundreds of references, practices, and principles of yoga are explained. There are two kinds of mainly text. One is known as Shruti, Sanskrit word, and other is known as Smriti. What is Shruti? In the morning, I was giving meditation, and after the meditation, one person from Eastern Europe shared his experiences. He said that my body became totally like a like a rock. It was not moving, and deeper inside, I saw calmness and peace was descending into my body. I became totally calm and peace and the joy. How we get our joy and the pleasure? Oh, let me give the candy. Mom, can you get me a smartphone? The latest phone? Can you buy me a dress? Etc. etc. So we get pleasure by buying something, getting something, using something. Right? How long that pleasure lasts? Say, for example, you have the latest phone. First week, you feel very good. Second week, the pleasure is less. Third week, pleasure still goes down. And after a month, you use the phone as you use other stuff. Who cares? Pleasure is gone. So, when this student said that I felt the inner calmness and the peace, did that calmness and peace came from a smartphone? Came from anything outside? That is the journey of yoga. When we discover that inner peace, that does not come from anything, any object outside. Are you getting it? So, when you continue the journey of yoga, you practice, you go into a deeper meditative state, then what happens? That peace enters into your mind from nowhere. That happiness enters into your mind from nowhere. So, when great masters absorbed into the higher practices of yoga, these experiences were revealed and they wrote a text. That group of the text is known as Shruti. Did you understand? So, Shruti means heard, revealed. Huh? And the Smriti text, another group of the text, which is known as a Smriti, means they have been written after based on your experiences. So there are many texts. So understood that? Shruti and Smriti. Shruti is knowledge revealed. You are just sitting in deep meditation and the knowledge pours down. You remember them, you scribe them. So I have already sent that paper. We have many group of the texts like Veda, like Aranyaka, like Upanishad. So they all give us a deeper insight of different yoga practices. Clear? Understood? If you don't understood, you can ask. If you don't understand, you can ask me a question. Then there are many texts which comes under the group of texts which is known as Purana, and also known as epics. So this Purana explains the principles of yoga in the form of stories. There are thousands of stories. Sienna, I always teach differently in every lesson, even if the topic is the same. I don't teach one thing, I don't repeat the thing. Whatever comes to the mind, because I have been doing the practice for the last 40 years. Even couple of counselors are my students who take care of the mental health of the people. They have depression, so they come to me. They manage the depression of others. I manage their depression. It is such a deep science. It is not only the practices of physical practices of asanas, breathing practices, it gives you a very deeper insight of the mind that I was talking in the very beginning. So now we will understand from where yoga came to America, from India. Huh? From India. India is the land of yoga.
Guys, Mom, keep us on the play screens.
Ask your mom to listen to me. Bring her also. Bring your siblings also. Tell them that you have to sit behind and listen to this beard guy so that they can keep quiet. So now we want to understand how this yoga came to US, our country. So the first master came to US in 1893, whose name is Swami Vivekananda. Journey of yoga to America. I have written. You see that para? Swami Vivekananda in 1893. Then there was another master, Mast Muni, in 1919. Then there is another master, Paramhans Yoganand, in 1920. Then another great master, Swami Ram Tirth, in 1929. Then there was another lady, women, Indra Devi, in 1947. And Maharshi Mahesh Yogi in 1960. These are the names of the masters. I want to talk about Swami Vivekananda, who lived only for 37 years of his life. He has written more than 200 books at the age of 37. I become very shy when I say this. I'm 61-year-old, has written only 3 and 4 books. He has written 200 books. He died at the age of 37. And he was a great master. So why he came to US in 1893? He came to US to give a talk on yoga to a world parliament of religion. In 1893, he came to Chicago. And after giving his talk, he was very much welcomed by Americans. He stayed here for about 2 years teaching yoga. That is how Americans past time understood the science of yoga. Got it? So Swami Vivekananda, at the age of 22, he gave the world famous lecture. It became widely famous. It is also on the YouTube in his voice. And then many masters like Mast Muni, Paramhans Yogananda, who built his monastery in California. Swami Ram Tirth came in 1929. Then Maharshi Mahesh Yogi became famous in 1960s. You will come to know instantly. Do you know the hippie movement?
Yes.
Yeah, so he changed thousands of hippies. He introduced the meditation. You know the Beatles?
Yeah.
Beatles were the disciples and students of Maharshi Mahesh Yogi. So lot of masters, and now many masters have come. I want to talk a little more about Swami Vivekananda. You know Rockefeller, who, all the Shell, perhaps the Shell gas company owned by the Rockefeller. 100 years ago, he was the richest person on the earth. He was suffering from many illnesses. So the friend of a Rockefeller asked him to meet Swami Vivekananda. You know how these great masters influence the world and the people. That is the story. So Rockefeller said, what the hell I will get with this monk who does not have even a house and the money? So anyhow, his friend took him to Vivekananda. Vivekananda told Rockefeller, you have earned too much of wealth and it is lying idle in your bank account. You have earned the wealth from the Americans. Why don't you donate some of the wealth to those Americans who are not able to afford their 2 meals? And he got upset because he was very miser, selfish. After 2 weeks, Rockefeller donated about $1 million long back, more than 100 years ago. And he got his news published in the newspaper. He took the paper clipping of that news of the donation to Vivekananda, to this master again. See, I have donated $1 million. Now you should thank me. Who said? Rockefeller told Vivekananda. So Vivekananda looked at him and smiled and told him, you should thank me. Why should I thank you? The Rockefeller said, you should thank me because I donated $1 million. Vivekananda said, no, you should thank me. So Rockefeller asked, why should I thank you? So Vivekananda said, I showed you the right path, right use of the money. You should thank me. Why should I thank you? Did you understand? Siena, Vivekananda told Rockefeller that I'm not going to thank you. You should thank me because I showed you the right path. And you see, after that, Rockefeller died. He created a Rockefeller Foundation that is helping millions of people worldwide in different projects. Rockefeller Foundation is still alive. That is the impression of these great masters of yoga. They do not, after their self-discovery, they help, they guide others also on that path. Clear? You understood the importance and the greatness of these teachers? So the real teacher of yoga, they consider every human being is equal, free from the religion, free from the cult, dogma, and belief. Now, one thing you have to be very clear. Is smartphone Christian or Jewish? It is a science. It has nothing to do with any religion. Do you see that? Is peace and happiness Christian?
No.
No. It is for everyone. Do you see that? You have to understand very clearly. So when I was in Jakarta, long back in 1983, 1994, 95, so a Muslim asked me, I am a Muslim, can I practice yoga? It is very important. Always remember this so that you can teach and educate others what exactly is the message of yoga. And another guy asked me, I am a Christian, can I practice yoga? So I answered them, if you are a Christian and practice yoga, you become a better Christian. If you are a Muslim, you practice yoga, you become a better Muslim. If you are a student, you practice yoga, you become a better student. You are a daughter, you practice yoga, you become a better daughter. Are you getting it?
Yes.
You become a good person. You know what is being a good person. You discover the goodness in you, whether you belong to any religion, whether you are of any age, whether you have any profession, whether you have any relationship. Only one thing happens by the practice of yoga. You become better, better, better person. Are you clear? If you have any doubt, you can throw any question to me. You should be very clear. Knowledge is very important. Clarity is very important. When you have a clarity, then it goes into your head and it stays there. When you have a doubt, it doesn't stay there. Aiden, you're clear? Yes, very good. Mom is listening? Mom didn't come listening? Very good. You can call anyone, I have no problem. So understand that is the beauty of yoga. But before that, before I go further, one should understand there is a popular notion of yoga and there is a real notion of yoga. What is popular notion? Popular notion contradicts what I am teaching you. What is the popular notion? Ashtanga yoga, Vinyasa yoga, hot yoga, cold yoga, airflow yoga. They are the styles of yoga. They are the popular notion of yoga. Clear? They are the styles of yoga. They are popular notion of yoga. And what we have been learning together is the real notion of yoga. So you may ask me a question. Only the beer guy teaches the real notion of yoga. That question may come to your mind. No. The real notion of yoga comes from the tradition. What is that tradition? The tradition means the teachers, great teachers who discovered yoga, the text which contains the real teachings of yoga is passed on to the generation. That is what is the tradition. So you further ask me the question, do you claim that you teach real yoga? No, I don't teach anything. I am teaching what our great masters have taught us, giving examples, references of the text, of the teachings. Did you understand that?
Yes.
Let us understand in a different way. Chemistry teacher goes to the class and he says, from today, N2O is water, H2O is not water. Will you accept it? H2O is water. That is the chemistry formula. And if the teacher insists, no, leave what the knowledge you have learned about the chemistry, H2O is not water, P2O is water or N2O is water. Will you accept that is the real teaching of the chemistry? But if he teaches H2O, it means he is teaching what is already been taught by great scientists in the chemistry. Right? Similarly, any teacher of yoga discipline must adhere to the teachings from the text, from the tradition. That becomes the real notion of yoga. Clear? You are learning from me. I learned from my master. My master learned from his master, from the same body of knowledge. What is that body of knowledge? That was discovered 6,000 years. That is why you see that I always give you a reference. That in Gita, equanimity is yoga. Because I belong to that tradition. So we should belong to that tradition of body of knowledge. Not any cult, not any dogma, not any belief. Pure knowledge. Like the knowledge of the science. Clear? Did you get it? Yes, let us go further. Yes, you can read it. I have written for advanced students. It takes 1,000 years for knowledge to establish in the mind, but yoga is more than 6,000 years old. The message is clear. I have given you the names of the great masters. Vasishtha, Yajnavalka, Ashtavakra, Krishna, Shiva, Dattatreya. They continued the tradition of this knowledge. Clear? Let us go little deeper. So we, in the 6,000 years of the tradition of yoga and its knowledge, for the sake of understanding, we can divide into different age. When we divide into different age, then we can find out what texts are available and what to study. So if you read the paper, first is the Vedic age. Vedic age means in which the 4 books are written. Earliest part of the tradition of yoga. How to prove it? In Delhi, we have a national museum in which there are fossils. You know fossils? So fossils of certain yogasana are found which are 6,000 years old. It means yoga is very old. That was the stone in the Vedic period. And come down to the second period, pre-classical yoga. What is the pre-classical yoga? That is another age. Means around 4,000 years ago. I will show you. I brought from India. There is a tree found in the Himalayas. So they peel their skin in a circular way. They dry it. The Indian monks, they dry it and they write it on that peeled, dry stem of a paper. So in those days, all those great texts were written on that stem. That is peeled, dried, and made into the size of a paper. So next time when we meet together, I'll bring that stem. It is in the form of A4 size paper. So in those days, they used to write, and they created a pen. They constructed a pen from a very small, thin bamboo tree. They peel it on one side so it becomes a pen. And they created ink with natural colors from the plants. And they used to write these texts. So the pre-classical period, they are known as Upanishad. The group of the texts that were written in that day is known as Upanishad. Do you know what do you mean by Upanishad? I taught it to Siena and every. So Upanishad, there are 300, more than 300 Upanishad texts. It is a dialogue between the master and a disciple. But we should understand only the meaning of the Upanishad. Then you will appreciate these texts. So, Upa means sitting nearby. Ni, the word ni means commitment. Shad means remove all the sufferings from the life, to live in peace and happiness, to discover our real self. So these texts explains in detail the philosophy, the principle, and practices of yoga at length. That is why they are known as Upanishad. Right? So one Upanishad explains about the mind. For example, Amrit Bindu Upanishad. What it says, I know little bit Sanskrit, not too much. All the texts are written in Sanskrit. So it explains when you are angry, reactive, you suffer, you say, I'm suffering from anxiety, depression, duality, conflict, I react, I become angry. So that master said it is impure mind. Don't worry, there is an impurity in the mind. When you purify the mind, you discover inner peace and happiness. So that Amrit Bindu Upanishad explains about mind. What is that mind? Manohi devidham proktam shuddham ashuddham evacha. So what it says, that mind is of two types, impure and pure. Impure mind causes the suffering, and pure mind leads to freedom, peace, happiness, love, wisdom. Now we come to classical yoga. Classical yoga, you can read it. I'll give you one example of that. In classical yoga, we are going to study the uh, select verses from the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Sutra means formula, for your understanding. You all are kids, so it is better to understand Patanjali Yoga formula. How many formulas are there? There are 195 formulas. What they explain about everything. What do you mean by everything? So if you study, my students study that Yoga Sutra in 2 years. I teach them for 2 hours every week. Then they do the practice. They return next week. For 2 years, almost 105 lessons of 2 hours, means almost 210 to 20 lessons with me. And they spend another 400 hours self-study. So that completes the course level 1. So now what happens with the course level 1? After you have studied everything and you are doing the practice. So you feel that, no, I have some negative trait. So you know the formula, how to remove those negative traits from your mind, from those formulas. You have the understanding, you have the practice, and you change your mind. So Yoga Sutras gives you a very in-depth understanding about your nature, about your body, about your mind, about your negative traits, about your positive traits, about different stages of meditation, about the practice of, about hundreds of practices are there. How to gain tremendous focus of the mind, how to increase the memory, how to increase the retention power. Do you see that? Did you understand? Classical yoga. I was talking that Patanjali Yoga Sutra is a classical yoga which was written almost 3000 years ago from today, and that gives you a formula, 195 formulas. So now say, for example, you have studied all the formulas, and one day you wake up and you say, no, my mood is off, I'm getting angry. So now you remember the principle from the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. You know the practice, you do the practice, you get out of it. That powerful book is the Patanjali Yoga Sutra is there. Patanjali is the name of a master. Here, now comes the popular notion, popular yoga, which is nothing but the modern yoga. People have forgotten what Swami Vivekananda taught in long back in 1893. Do you want to study? Do you want to get a deep knowledge of yoga? You can go to the Google and you can search 4 classicals of Swami Vivekananda. 4 classicals. So you will get a free PDF to download if you want to go deeper. So what happens in modern yoga? Popular notion of yoga. What is the popular notion of yoga? The Hatha Yoga. Who made the Hatha Yoga popular in America? Indra Devi. The name of that master, the women master, is Indra Devi. She opened the first Hatha Yoga studio in Hollywood in 1947. Do you know Gloria Swanson, Jennifer Jones, Robert Ryan? So Indra Devi taught yoga to Gloria Swanson, to Jennifer Jones, to Robert Ryan, and that is how she became famous. Right? So these are the popular notions of yoga. I have already explained what is popular notion of yoga and what is the real notion of yoga. Clear?
Yeah.
Then came in 1950s, there was another yoga teacher, Selvarajan Yesuddin, wrote a book, Sport and Yoga. So yoga was connected to the sport and people left the higher practice of yoga, that is meditation. He also became very famous. Then in 1961, Hatha Yoga was presented on American television by Richard Hittleman. He also became very famous. And then came Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. He taught what he taught? He taught yoga too. He taught transcendental meditation. There is a practice of meditation. It's a kind of mantra meditation. He taught mantra meditation to millions of Americans. Millions. He became very famous from 1960s to almost 1980s and 90s when the hippie movement was on a rise in our country, and he attracted hundreds and thousands of hippies who started practicing this transcendental meditation. And the Beatles group also became their disciple. Now, write down what is the goal of yoga. Question: what is the difference? What science discovers and what yoga discovers? Second question: how old the knowledge of yoga is? What is the place and the origin of yoga? How do you explain equanimity is yoga? I explained at length. Equanimity is yoga. What is the popular and real notion of yoga? What is the first master of yoga travel to India and when? Who was the first Indian master of yoga travel to India and when? What are the two groups of text? How they are different? These are the questions you should cover, and you can send the email to me. Writing the answer, take your own time. Now we have another 15 minutes. Ask me any question. Yes, Yana.
Oh, okay. I wasn't here for the first few questions.
Yeah.
I missed the first 30 minutes because I was late. So what did you guys talk about?
First question. First question. What is the first question? Equanimity. Huh? So the text, Gita text talks about the definition of yoga. One of the many definitions of yoga given by the Master Krishna in the text Gita, he says Samatvam Yog Uchyate, means equanimity of the mind is yoga. What is that equanimity? Means the mind behaves, thinks, speaks, and act with equal attitude. Your behavior, your thought, speech, and action is not different from one person to the other person. So that is one meaning of equanimity of yoga. Means what? Again, understand. Go deeper. The first point of equanimity is that your mind treats everyone equal without any difference. Do you treat your siblings, Sienna, equally?
Yes.
Yes. So that is the first level of equanimity. Yeah, it is outer level. Huh? So we don't create any envy, we don't create any jealousy, we don't create any conflict in our mind. We remain equal. Right? That is the first understanding of equanimity. Now, when that happens, still the mind has likes and dislikes, reaction and response in the mind about people, things, circumstances. That is happening in the mind. So when we rise above the likes and dislikes, that is the second level of equanimity. You understand? First is outside, second is inside. Huh? You understand second level of equanimity. Say, for example, the Sienna meets Hayden, and if Sienna has a liking for Hayden, not liking for every example. Sienna is not like this. But just an example. So that means my mind is behaving differently inside. Outside, it says the same thing. So that likes and dislikes causes anxiety, causes reaction, causes anger. When we remove all those and the mind lives in the state of calmness and peace, that is the second level of equanimity. Understood?
Yes.
Now, the third level of equanimity. Now, you continue the journey of yoga. Asan, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyan. You come to dhyan. You are absorbed into deeper meditation. So, that knowledge of the peace dawns in your heart, in your mind. That peace and happiness dawns in your mind. You discover your real self. That is the third level of equanimity. You got it?
Yes.
One thing has to be always remember. You just ask yourself how I become a good person to myself. The journey of yoga begins. If I have jealousy in my mind, before I become jealous of you, what happens? The jealousy is created in my mind. So I have to become a good person to myself. So I have to remove that jealous in me. That is how I become a good person to myself. So when I become a good person to myself, I become good for everyone. Otherwise, what happens? I show that I am a good person outside, but I am not good inside. That creates an anger. That leads to anxiety. Are you understanding?
Yes.
So yoga says, okay, close your eyes and ask your mind why you are envious, why you are jealous, why you have a hatred. Let me remove this hatred and the reaction from my mind. Doing the meditation, doing the pranayama. And once you remove it, you open your eyes, you find yourself in the state of the calmness and peace and the joy and the happiness. In that joy and the happiness, what happens? Your personality changes. When your personality changes, means what? Your attitude and behavior changes. I had one IT student, client, you can understand in that way. I never say client, I say my friend and student. So he is in IT industry in a very Fortune 500 company. So he has been doing the practice almost for the 9 months regularly. He does 2 sessions a week. Now that's how I make my living. So after 6 months, he was telling me one day that his wife, his parents told him that his voice becomes softer. He become very calm. His speech, his communication became very poised. So he asked me, "Does these thing happens?" I said, 100%. When you continue the practice, your anxiety will go away. And another part is extremely important. You'll be surprised. In the last 9 months, he passed 8 very difficult IT certification examinations, which normally people do in 6 or 7 years. He used to study for 2 examinations every month, and the second month he used to appear and he got the certification. He said during the COVID-19, I'm not allowed to go out. I can introduce you to that guy. You'll be surprised. He's in his 30s. That is the power of yoga. If we apply the different practices of yoga in our daily life. Your mom has asked some question, Hayden? No? Okay. So that is what he said, let me do it. And so he is still continuing. He does 2 sessions a week with me for about an hour. And he's learning and he's going deeper and deeper into meditation. That is the power of yoga. Choice lies with you. So, any more question? I will send you this audio file and put also the video file.